Well, have you had any curious experience which others find hard to believe? Yes, students, this chapter is about certain curious, inexplicable kind of experience that everybody has had at one point or the other in his or her life. Because this chapter, actually, I took this little discussion on the chapter the third level by Jack Finney in the book Vistas of 12th class, just for the reason that you perhaps find it a little strange and weird kind of story in which the character Charlie is not able to explain how he and how and what he experiences and goes through. So although I have uploaded two of the videos, that two parts of the video which I made myself on this chapter, but I know that it needs a little bit more discussion. So just to have a little discussion and to ask you as to whether you have understood why Charlie has been forced to visit his psychiatrist friend. That is, why is he seeking psychiatric help? I assume that you know what the story is about, how and what events happen in the sequential manner. And I assume that you know who the psychiatrist friend is. He is Sam, the psychiatrist, and this is Charlie, our main character, the protagonist. Well, why does he seek psychiatric help? Why does he seek psychiatric help? Because he cannot explain what experience he is gone through. Like I said, he has never been through such experiences a few months back, but he confesses somewhere here in the first paragraph as well that for the past some of the past months he has been through through places, through corridors and through new tunnels at the Grand Central Station, and he has found do you see this? See, he says, I told him about the third level at Grand Central Station. And then what was the diagnosis that Sam does? He does a diagnosis which is unacceptable to Charlie. Remember this. He says, you have waking dream wish fulfillment. I would go back again to it. He says that Charlie, you have a waking dream wish fulfillment. That is, you have a tendency to dream while you are awake. That is, whatever you went through, that you found the third level. Third level, like I discussed in the video which I made, third level is the second basement. The second basement under the first floor, the ground level of the Grand Central Station. So which actually did not ever exist, because in the first very line you see here, the presidents of the New York Central and the New York New Haven and Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only two levels. That means one train passes by on the ground level and another train crosses it under that level, and that is at the basement, and that is two levels, two stories, that is one underneath the first one, that is one in the basement. But Charlie strangely goes to the third level, and my question is, do you think that Charlie readily accepts that sort of disease? You may call it a disease, of course, because Sam does not talk about it in a very encouraging way. He talks in a very derogatory way. He says, not actually derogatory, he says it's quite normal in this modern age because everybody wants to escape, and it's a temporary escape from reality. Yes, I use the word escape in place of refuge. Escape. That is, he was saying that, Charlie, you are escaping from reality. And what is the reality? The reality is very harsh. You may not be happy with your life. Now, this was something which struck Charlie. He says, why aren't I happy? I am happy. I am happy. I have a very beautiful wife who loves me. I am in a good relationship. I'm happy with my life, and I have a good job. I have nothing to worry about. Of course, this age maybe. Yeah, this is Charlie actually wearing this garbadine dark suit, and he goes through the railway station. But there he finds strange people, the people who were not of this modern age. They did not belong to this age. Actually, they belong long back, 100 years before that age. And so now he narrates this incident. Actually, he is in direct talk with us, the readers. He says, because he is not happy with what Sam has diagnosed his problem. So he says, I am just an ordinary guy. I am Charlie, 31 years old. I'm not even old to hallucinate. I was wearing a suit, garbadine suit with a straw hat. Sorry, the description that of the attire that he had. I passed a dozen men who looked just like me, but suddenly he goes to the third level. But then before he goes on to tell us all about his strange and unbelievable experiences, he says, I have a beautiful wife, Lavizia, who waits for me when I get home. So I was not trying to escape anybody, he says. Right. And another thing that you have to be very mindful of is he offers another argument. He has another reason that tells us that he has nothing to worry. He says, my grandfather even collected stamps. Now, why does the reference of stamp come over here? It is so simple. See how. I'll tell you. Stamp collection. See, he started my stamp collection. Do you see this? My Dadaji, that is my grandfather, had a collection. Collection refers to that of stamps actually. Stamps. So he collected stamps. And even President Roosevelt collected stamps. You see. Collection of stamps. And it was a nice collection. So I inherited those stamps, that collection of stamps. And there was nothing to worry in his times. If you say, what was Sam's argument and how is he refuting his argument? He says that, Mr. Sam, you are saying that I collect stamps and that stamp collection itself tells me that I am an escapist, because it's often said that people who are collecting shells or stamps or collecting or going to archaeological places or museums are not, or that is who are interested in historical places or things are escaping from the present. Or why would they go to history and try to revisit the historical places? Stamps belong to every age, past and present, right? So if I, who has stamps, if I am an escapist, then why does that mean? Does that mean as a corollary that my grandfather also was an escapist? And grandfather, my dear friend Sam, grandfather does not belong to my age. He used to live 100 years ago in Galesburg, this fabled city, which is often been mentioned as a city which fascinates Charlie like anything. So he says, my Dadaji, that means also wanted to, it was his original collection. So did he also want to escape from reality, despite being from the past? And you are saying that past were times of no stress, no worries, and no tensions. Then why would he collect stamp? That means stamp collection has no direct or indirect relation with escapism, right? Okay, understand this thing, students, very important. And now as the chapter moves ahead, of course this all is actually the way that he passes through. He says that I am always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors, and I simply don't understand why it happens to me. He says, It was only the other day that I got into a tunnel, and that tunnel ended up into a lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel, and that was unbelievable, you know. So strange things used to happen with him. So you have to understand that Charlie, although he is not accepting the harsh diagnosis by his friend Sam, but still he is a sort of a lost fellow, you know, not in his sanities, so called. But the counter argument is, in this modern age, almost everybody is not actually sane. Everybody has his or her own reality, you know. That's how Charlie is. And he says, I think, that is his metaphorical way of saying. If you see in the question exercises also, you will see that this Charlie, this question actually is there. Okay, why does he say, Charlie says that I think Grand Central is growing like a tree. Tree grows, but the railway station, or the corridors don't grow. The buildings don't grow. The pathways don't grow. You have to construct them. They don't grow like a tree does. But as for my experience, I often been finding new corridors and new staircases almost on a regular basis. So is it growing? Is the railway station, its corridors and staircases and tunnels, are they growing like the branches and the roots of a tree? That is his metaphorical way of saying that I am experiencing surreal things, not real things, you know. But that day, what happened? This is all his sequential experience. He is very, very methodical. Actually, he takes us onto the path he is led into, like a tunnel turned sharp left. Here it is. Here it goes. See, I could hear my footsteps, and then so and so, and the tunnel appeared, and it turned sharp left, and I took a short flight of stairs downwards, and then appeared the third level, that fantasy called third level, which was always a stuff of his dreams, came out to be real. And even guess what? That third level promised him to take him to a past 100 years back to Galesburg, because there was a train stationed over there. There was a platform at the third level, and an old kind of train which belonged to the British era stood there. Not just that, there was this booth. As he goes on to explain, there was this booth and a man inside it who wore peculiar eye shades and long black sleeve protectors. These are the actually clothes belonging to the era of 1890s era age. So these are the old kind of clouds. And then there were open gas lights, open flame gas lights. Yeah, correct. And then of course there was there's a whole lot of description about how people looked like. They had long beards, handlebar mustache and stuff. Ladies also were wearing old kind of clothes. But this all goes to prove that he was in the 1890s era. Not just that, to assure him as an ultimate proof, he saw a newspaper which used to be published in those days. The World, the name of the newspaper, had this date printed on it, and that was 11 June 1894. To be specific, June 18, 1894. Well, that said, students, I'll take you fast forward to his present. Actually, when he comes back, because he could not get the tickets, as we all know, the ticket checker refused him the tickets, since he has the new currency, which was quite different from the old currency, because it was the times of the old 1890s. So old currency was in order. So old style bills or old style dollars were current then. So he was refused. But when he went back home, and the next day he tried again with a new currency, he exchanged the modern currency with the old currency, and he went back to that place. He could not find, actually he tried to find third level but never could, and that's where he visited his friend Charlie. But the problem was when sometime later he went again to Sam. I mean, he wanted to meet him. He got to understand that Sam had disappeared. Now this is a point which is really, really intriguing. My friend Sam Weiner disappeared. Because Lauzi, I was pretty worried when I told her about Lauzi is the wife. She didn't want me to look for the third level anymore. It was quite hopeless to find the third level. But he had already mentioned it to his friend Sam. Now you would wonder, where would Sam, the psychiatrist, disappear? There are many speculations. You could speculate that Sam had gone on holiday. Had he gone on holiday? Or had he been trying for third level? Or why would he try for the third level then? When he himself says there's no such thing as third level, he had outright refused it, calling Charlie a victim of a hallucination called waking dream wish fulfillment. Why would he himself go on to search for it? Not only did he search for it, he found it. And that finding of Sam is evident, comes as evident in his letter to Charlie. He clearly says, I got to wishing. Now that's the climax of the chapter. Charlie says, I got to wishing that you were right. I always wished ki Charlie, only if third level really existed, because I also wanted to escape. That goes to prove that Sam was a frustrated man. Yes, this is one of the topmost apprehensions or doubts, that even Sam wanted to visit third level. Those old fantastic charms of those old age, 90 years old, 90 or 100 years ago. How people were so happy. They didn't have any tensions. They sprawled and languished in long lawns, white lawns, among the butterflies, and wearing big hats and having lemonade. Well, Charlie is surprised to find this letter amongst the collection of first day covers in his grandfather's collection. First day cover, I have explained you. The letter, actually the stamp collector posts to himself, and he pastes a new stamp, the new stamp which he has just freshly bought from the post office. He pastes it and gets the rubber stamp through the post office, because it will go through the regular route and come to his own address, but it doesn't have anything written on the paper. The paper is blank. But in that process, he gets the stamp with the rubber. He gets the new postal stamp, the newly issued or published, newly launched postal stamp with the rubber stamp as well, and he adds it to his collection. But here is Sam writing, ki, come on Charlie, I have been here for 2 weeks. Remember this, 2 weeks. This is intriguing actually, because the letter written on July 18, if you look up here on the very right, top right, July 18, 1894, has Sam gone into the past? And how is this letter written? Like it was supposed to be a blank letter. It was a first day cover. That means Sam somehow managed to get to the third level, and he boarded the train as well. Not only did he board the train, he reached Galesburg of 1894 and July 18. That means from June 11, remember the date on the newspaper that he saw, June 18 to July, June 11 to July 18, more than a month. And Sam says, I have been here for 2 weeks. I have been here for 2 weeks. That is, for 14 days he had been there. That means almost for about a month that Sam must have been visiting that railway station, or had been fantasizing to visit, and finally he found that third level. That means he also was adamant upon, frustrated and desperate to reach it, and he really found it. So perhaps Sam was more frustrated than Charlie, although, so I suspect that Sam was more of an escapist. He must have been far more desperate and far more, let's say, frustrated than Charlie was. And he goes on to write his experience. Everybody's playing a piano and they're having a lemonade there. And come on, Charlie and Lauzia. And he goes on to add something which he had asked not to. He had discouraged Charlie from looking for third level, but now he's encouraging him. See, that is here. I'll take you back again there. That is here. Here it is. Keep looking. Keep looking what? Keep looking for the third level till you find it. Till you find it. That means it is worth it. Believe me. Now he's asking Charlie to believe me, which he himself was not believing previously. And see, the note is signed Sam. So, do you think Charlie would have again gotten onto searching for third level? Yes, because he had become hopeless previously. He had again resorted to stamp collection. No, yaar, I cannot find it. It's not there. Must have been my hallucination, my dream or fantasy, whatever you may call, or it could have been a waking dream, wish fulfillment. But now, sudden hope catches back, and he thinks, and I guess Charlie would have gotten again to go on looking for the third level. See here. So, of course, he ends in a very sarcastic manner that Sam is having a new business rather of feed and grain, which he always must have longed and yearned to do. Feed and grain business. Sam must have been wishing to leave his profession of psychiatry, and that he did. He set up a new little hay, feed and grain business. That is a very rural kind of business. Grain business, where the grain seeds for animals, and even the hay and the feed and grain. Hay is for animals, like for cattle, and even grains like wheat, barley. These are also part of grains. So he got started with his own business, and that happened to be his present business, although because he cannot go to his old business, that is, the old business was what was that was of psychiatry. So the present becomes actually his past, Sam's past, and the new present, that is 1894, is his present. Sam's present actually is the past for Charlie. And that's how the story ends. So perhaps it might leave you in some confusion as to why Charlie would ask for it, and why Sam would go for third level. Where actually would he, vanish? But there is a certain logic in this story. Modern age has its woes and worries, and most of the people who think themselves to be very sane are not actually in reality. They would want to escape into their own reality, where they would relax and they would not have any expectations from others, and others also would not have any expectations from them. So Sam was happier. Charlie would want to be happier again. Right. Stamp collection would not be enough for him. He would sure want to visit the third level and his fabled city of Galesburg.